Hey everyone, the Collector 27 here, coming at you guys with another awesome action figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Retro Spider-Man. Let's take a look. Alright, so for accessories, he doesn't come with much. He comes with two alternate heads. One is supposed to be based off of the 90s animated series, and the other is supposed to be, I guess, a more comic version. We've seen this type of look on him multiple times throughout the comics, mostly in the early comics. And they're both painted fairly well. I just think that on the, I guess, more cartoon looking or animated series head, the web is just slightly off on the right side, and it just slightly misses the rest of the line right there, and I just noticed that under the camera. Other than that, the webs came out fairly clean. There's just some spots here and there, which is what we're used to getting with Spider-Man figures, is that they tend to kind of miss the web line sometimes when it gets printed on there. You'll notice some imperfections here and there, but sitting on top of a shelf, it's not going to look terrible. I think that the more, I guess, comic-based head, I forgot which artist drew this head sculpt. I want to say it was John Romita Senior, or I could be wrong, so let me know down in the comments below, but I'm pretty sure that's who it was who drew this type of art style in the comics. This head sculpt came out a little bit cleaner. There are still some imperfections here and there, obviously this being a $20 figure and not an import figure like SH Figure Arts or Mafex. It's not going to be perfect, even those companies messed up as well, but this is Hasbro. He comes with two web shooting whipping hands, both a left and right. The paint on these came out very, very well. We've seen this exact same sculpt in the past with different Spider-Man figures painted differently, different paint applications over in the past, but they both came out really clean. And then, last but not least, he comes with two fisted hands. So he comes with these, and I think they look pretty good. I mean, again, we've seen these exact same hands before in the past. They came out clean. The paint on there, all the line work seems to be really clean. Again, nothing too new. I do wish he would have come with some maybe open hands, relaxed palms, some like wall crawling hands as we've seen in the past. Like, if we're gonna get the same accessories, I mean, might as well throw in an additional set of wall crawling hands, because I don't think Spider-Man should come as a figure without wall crawling hands. It's kind of like, I think that the basic accessories that Spider-Man should always come with, especially if it's just the regular Peter Parker Spider-Man, should be these two head sculpts were really cool. But even if it just came with one of these, it doesn't matter which one for me. Maybe a more animated series version type of look, and then maybe an unmasked Peter Parker head sculpt, even if it wasn't based off of the animated series, if it was more based off of the comics, or one of the comic renditions, or even one of the other Peter Parker head sculpts we've gotten in the past. I think that would have been better. That's something Spider-Man should always come with. And then some wall crawling hands. And then if Hasbro decided to be real generous, it would have been really cool maybe to get even the webs that we've seen in the past. Like, they're not too great, but as I always say, the more accessories, the better, So let's get on to the details and the articulation of the figure. Alright, now that I have Spider-Man headless and handless, let's pop on one of the heads. Let's take the more animated series version and pop it on there, and it just snaps on. That one's pretty easy to snap on. And then we're gonna do one of each. We're gonna take, I guess, let's see, the fist for the right arm, and then we'll do a whipping hand for the left. Let's see, I find that the left side is kind of more difficult for the hands to pop in, but anyway, let's get on to the details of the figure. Obviously, with this being a classic version of Spider-Man, we get the classic red and blue look. The spider logo came out really clean. The lines came out really clean. There are some imperfections here and there around the butterfly joints, where the black framing of the web line, where it's supposed to stop at the red, it got crossed over into the blue. Same thing on this side, the print on the chest near I guess like the pec areas, or yeah, near the chest. Some of those areas are just the line work doesn't go all the way through. One thing I will say that this figure missed out on is the fact that we are now seeing pinless joints in the elbows and even in legs of some new figures, and I think that this figure would have highly benefited from a pinless joint system. It would have made it a lot cleaner. It would have allowed webbing to go all the way through. Instead, we do have some pins. I will say pins have never bothered me before. They still don't, because it is an action figure. I don't expect it to be like I'm, posing a small, realistic human. It's an action figure. It's a toy, so obviously there are going to be pins and cuts and stuff like that in order for there to be articulation. So I've heard some people complain that, oh, this figure should have had pinless joints. Well, it was created before they came out with the pinless joint system and finalized it. I understand the design process, so I'll cut them some slack for that. I'll cut Hasbro some slack. I think, now if it would have been additional, had this figure come out after the pinless joint system was released and it still had pins, then I think there wouldn't be an excuse really if they could have just modified it. But seeing that this one came out before, I think, give them a pass, again, other than that, it just looks really good. Pins, they don't bother me. It's good, it's fine. So as we get down from the chest area, you're going into the mid-torso and the waist, the paint actually goes pretty much all the way through, so it cuts off right there, but you're not going to really see that. I forgot to mention that the paint on the neck goes all the way up, which is really nice. One of my favorite parts about this figure is that the spider logo on the back is actually really clean, and I really enjoy that. A gripe of mine, and I think it's kind of funny, is that on this side, for whatever reason, this line came out perfect. I'm not sure if you can see that, but the black line where it separates the red from the blue came out perfect. On this side, it barely misses the mark, so it's not too bad. But with this side right here on the right shoulder, there's no line right there at all, and I didn't scrape it off. Nothing happened. The articulation didn't mess it up, and me posing it around. I just think it's funny that it missed that part. And on the front, it has it. On the front, it has that part. It has the black line that separates it. It does get cut off a little bit right there, which isn't too bad, but the paint came out really good in my opinion. I mean, again, it's a $20 figure, $22 maybe at most. If you're getting it at retail, it's not going to be SH Figure Arts quality or Hot Toys quality or any sort of import quality where the lines and everything are going to be perfect. Not to say that those companies are perfect. They do have their mess ups here and there, but it's a $20 figure. You're going to get it to pose around. It's going to be on your shelf. Would I like to have seen the line work be cleaner? Yes. But at the same time, it's not a deal breaker. It's like you get what you get. It's a Spider-Man figure. You know that for companies, it's going to be difficult for them to paint these lines on there and get it printed on there without there being some sort of fluke or mess up when doing so. As for the kind of like the pant area, it's just blue. After this, I guess it's kind of like a belt area, but towards the waist, it's just some line work, some webbing here, then it's all the way blue towards the bottom until you get to about the calf, and then that's where there's some more line work for the webbing. And this actually came out, I think, really clean down at the feet and the legs, or the lower legs I should say, is probably where it came out the cleanest. So for paint applications and the details on there, I'll give it like a 6 out of 10, just because I still think it could have come out cleaner, but it's not a deal breaker, so I'm not going to give it any lower than a 6. Let's get on to the articulation. All right, for the articulation, we are seeing a totally new buck here. I believe the shoulders, the arms, and obviously the hands are reused. I believe the legs are reused, but we get some new articulation setup. So we'll start at the head. The head is on this dumbbell joint. Let's see if I can pop off the head. There's this ball joint or a kind of like a double ball joint where it goes deep down into the neck. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but it goes pretty deep down, which actually hinders articulation. So I don't understand why during the design process that they did this, because if when you are doing a dumbbell joint like this, everyone knows that the bigger ball should actually be in the neck, and it doesn't have to be super deep down. Right now, the end of this dumbbell joint is all the way at the bottom of the neck. What Hasbro should have done is raised it to the top of the neck, had the bigger part of the dumbbell in the neck piece, and then the smaller part go into the head, which is what we see with SH Figure Arts and import figures, which in this case Hasbro is trying to, I guess, mimic. That would have given it a lot more motion. Not to say that the motion is bad, but it leaves gaps. So if you have him look up, you see right there underneath the chin into the neck area, just a big ugly gap, and that just doesn't look good. And then back here, they also cut this area into the neck for that dumbbell joint to be pushed that far back. But while it gives it some good motion, it doesn't give it much. That's normal from a figure with a disc and ball hinge. Let's see if I can pop the head off. It's a disc, ball joint, and it looks up that far. Now if we get both of these figures here, let's see, just looking up without ab crunching, they look up about the same amount. Maybe this one looks, the Toys R Us exclusive one looks up a little bit less or the same amount, but at least there's less or little, actually no gapping at all with the Toys R Us exclusive, while the retro one has a bit of gapping underneath the chin. So that's a bit disappointing, considering that I think they did this and the cut, but so that way you can have some head pivot, which is nice, but I don't understand why head pivot would be more important than a swinging, jumping character being able to look up, because he doesn't look up very much on his own unless you do it like that, and then it looks ugly. But anyway, it is the exact same with this head, so I'm not going to pop it on and show you. The only, I guess, downside is on mine. Actually, I'll pop it on, why not? Is that the more comic version of the head, I guess you could say, if you place it on, at least on mine, it's extremely tight, and I'm always scared that I'm going to break the neck because it's so tight that it has trouble moving. But even when you have it move back, I think it's even more of a gap on this head. But it's the exact same, so I'll just leave this one on for now. Anyway, he has butterfly joints on both sides, which move back very far, which is very nice, and they move forward pretty good. The arms will move out only that much. They kind of get stuck in that shoulder joint, but you can move it underneath and kind of wedge it there, but you'll risk that the red paint, or I'm sorry, the black paint over the red will get chewed up and it'll scrape it, and so I personally don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do that. The arms will do a full 360. He has double jointed elbows. The hands are the same on both sides. They have the same joint, the up and down motion for the fist and for the whipping hand, which is to be expected for a whipping hand considering he's going to shoot some webs, right? The newest part of this buck is that while it looks like the Sunfire body mold, they actually released it with both a diaphragm joint and I don't really know what to call this. It's like a I guess almost like a double diaphragm joint, just because normally we see an ab crunch, so I guess it's a lower ab crunch and then an upper diaphragm joint, I guess. But both move, so if you move him back, he'll move back that far with both, which is a pretty good amount. Again, it gets a little gappy there. He'll move forward about that much, which is pretty good. I think, yeah, that's as far as he'll move forward. The cool part about this that Hasbro has done with this figure, along with one other figure that I'll show a comparison of later, is that he has drop down thighs, drop down legs right here, or I guess drop down hips, and you can see the inner workings in there. And Hasbro Marvel Legends has, I believe, only done this with one other figure in more recent times, and I'll show that later. But let's move these back up. So with the legs not being dropped down, he will move his leg up about that much. But if you drop them down, and you'll kind of feel him click a little bit, he can actually move it up a little bit further, which is nice. He has a thigh cut, double jointed knees, which move in about that much, which is pretty good considering he's supposed to be a very flexible character. He does have a a calf swivel, and then he has ankles that'll move down that much, ankles will move up about that much, and then he has really good ankle pivot. So Shardmus Prime is proud of that and would be proud of that. So there we go. So that is the articulation for this figure. Now let's move on to comparisons. I was going to probably cut it right here and then just edit it. Let's see. Here he is with the Marvel Legends Toys R Us exclusive 2-pack Spider-Man, the one that came with Mary Jane. If you stand them next to each other, they are about the same height. What I was going to say with these two figures, obviously the better buck, the better body mold is this one. Something that they improved on, because this is technically the Pizza Spider-Man body mold, or the Superior Venom from years ago. I think back in 2014 is when that one came out and it first used this body mold. It still has the butterfly joints. I think that, let's see, stand up. I think that the ab crunch on this one goes forward that much, which is pretty good. This one goes about the same actually, which is funny considering this one has a double joint right here helping him crunch forward. As for going back, he'll go back about that much, and let's see, I'll just move this one back. He goes back a lot more, which is funny. I think it would have been better if he did it in reverse, where he went forward more rather than back. So anyway, one thing I do think let's see if I can get him to stand. He's been on my shelf, so he's a little wobbly now. One thing I do think that the new Retro Spider-Man improved on, besides the drop-down hinges, is the fact that his arms can be closer in together. This one, his arms stick out a little bit in almost like this A type of shape, or this, like, I guess upside down V shape or something like that, where his arms are sticking out. And I try closing him in more and more. It just doesn't go in anymore. This one, his arms are closer to his body, which is nice. The length is good. He's not as scrawny, which this one was like very comic based, where this one, even though it is comic based and it is animated series based, this looks more like a realistic human physique rather than this. This looks like really scrawny and skinny and elongated. One thing I will mention though is that even with the drop down hinges, so let's pull the legs down a bit, and his leg moves out that much, and he could basically do the splits almost like that. His leg can go up about that much. I don't think that's much of a difference from what we got with let's see, what we got with this, I guess, Pizza Spider-Man body mold. And I know this one was improved from the first versions, but his leg can go up about that much, which is really good, and it doesn't even have a drop-down hinge. So I wish Hasbro on this one would have, especially giving us a drop-down hinge, would have had the articulation go even further or equal to what this is. Just because right now, or even further than what this is, because right now I feel that they're equal. And it shouldn't be that way, because this one's supposed to be the new improved one and everyone's going crazy about it, and trust me, I love it. But the articulation setup it's better, but it's just not so different from this one, other than this double jointed system. Other than looking different aesthetically and the sculpt, the range of motion is quite similar. So one thing I will say is that the reds on here are very, very similar, even under this bright LED light. So if you do have a previous Spider-Man figure like this one, I think this is the one that closely resembles the same reds. You can get his open hands. And then another benefit about having this Spider-Man is you get the Peter Parker head sculpt. So let's see if these fit on there. So let's put on, oh, he fell. Let's put on the Peter head. Yeah, wow, that's really tight, but it fits on there, and that looks really good. It looks really good. And so he still has the same amount of motion. I think because this head kind of sinks on it a little bit lower, the neck is kind of hidden, but at the same time, at different angles, it doesn't look so bad. He can look up pretty good. And then as for the hands, if you wanted him to have wall crawling hands, let's just pop one off. Oops. And then place it on there. Boom, there you go. You can't even tell the difference between the reds. It's a pretty similar red, if not the exact same red, and it looks good. So now you can have your retro Spider-Man with wall crawling hands. So I think that's really cool. If you're able to find this figure really cheap, you can use them for parts, basically. I have them on a different display. So Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters, so I'm just going to keep him on there. So I'm going to keep this head on for the rest of the video. Let's put that right there. Let's get this guy out of the way now. Real quick, the articulation setup that I was talking about, that we only saw drop down hinges and a double diaphragm joint, was actually with this beast right here. Literally Marvel X-Men beast. We see the drop down hinges, same sort of system in there. Excuse the dust because he's been on my shelf for quite a bit. And then we see the double kind of like diaphragm and ab crunch. One thing that would have been cool, I don't know if Hasbro would ever be able to do it within a human sized 6-inch scale figure, because this guy's more of like a beast size. Is that one thing Beast had going on, is that he had toe joints, which is something we had not seen since the Toy Biz days, or the last figure I think we saw it with was one of the Wrecking Crew members figures in the Ant-Man wave back in, I want to say 2014 or so, but even then that was reusing a Toy Biz body mold. So let's get that guy out of the way. And then let's see, one more Marvel comparison. Here is the Superior Ock Spider-Man, which is again a different body mold than this one, a different body mold than the Pizza Spider-Man, and even a different body mold than the Sunfire body mold, which is used on Deadpool and other Spider-Man figures like the Spider-Man 2099. The one thing about this figure which was really neat, I think we've only seen this body mold on this figure, and it had, again, I'm not going to review this figure, but I was just saying that it had butterfly joints like the Sunfire body mold, but it had this diaphragm cut rather than a ab crunch like this one. So with this diaphragm cut, it was pretty good. I did review it a while back. It didn't go forward very much or back, but I do feel that, this figure inspired the articulation for this figure. Because I think that if we take this figure and this figure, kind of mix them together in the sculpt wise, then we get the new Spider-Man body mold. Because I feel like he took the ab crunch from here and then the diaphragm joint from here. You mix these two together and then you get the retro Spider-Man. So I think that's really cool. I think they all scale together very well. Let's get these out of here. And then last but not least, one thing I think could have made this figure better is, I've said this before, that with this G.I. Joe Snake Eyes figure, it has drop down hinges as well for the legs. It has a similar setup, but kind of in reverse. It has like a waist swivel type of joint, almost like what the diaphragm has here, and then an ab crunch on top. So it's like in reverse. But G.I. Joe has recently been doing lower neck articulation, so that gives it more range. So they do a ball and disc at the top, and then a dumbbell type of lower ball joint at the bottom of the neck. And I think it would have been cool, and this figure would have benefited from doing that. So I really hope in the future that Hasbro Marvel Legends, I hope that they start doing lower neck joints right there. And I think, if I'm correct, I haven't gotten the movie Deadpool figure yet, but if I'm correct, I believe that figure has a lower neck joint from the reviews I've seen. But you could kind of see Snake Eyes looks up that much with the lower neck joint, and he has a bit of a tilt going on, and it looks a little bit more natural than the head tilt just coming from the top of the neck, and then he's able to look up that much. So just for the final few seconds of the video, let's get one of the Spider-Man heads on that came with it. My final thoughts on this figure are that it's really, really good. I highly recommend getting it if you haven't already. If you do have it, let me know down in the comments below. What do you guys think? If you don't have it, will you get it? Let's just talk about this figure. Let's create a discussion down below. Do you like this figure? Do you not like this figure? Is this an easy pass for you, or is this a must get? For me, I think it's a must get. As many other Spider-Man figures that we've gotten, I think that this is a must get, and I can guarantee that myself and many other collectors, this figure is going to be on our top 10 or even top 5 Marvel Legends of 2020 as we get closer to the end of the year. So other than that, I think this review is complete. Let me know what you guys think about this figure, about my review, down in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. Go follow me on Instagram. I'll have that in the link of this video, the link of my YouTube bio, and even somewhere on the screen in the beginning of this video. You can just go back and look for that. And then, if you follow me on Instagram, go comment on this post. I'm gonna have a post that is gonna have a link to this video, and tell me that you came from YouTube and saw the end of this video and now you're following me on Instagram. So that's awesome. Let's build this community. Let's support each other as collectors. So other than that, I hope you guys have a blessed day. That's all. Peace. Keep collecting.